Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Weyandt. Welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Great Tech Group, where we model the future of construction innovation and the digital transformation of this great industry. This episode is part of Prefab Unfiltered, recorded live at Advancing Prefabrication. One of the biggest shifts happening in prefabrication right now is the move from construction thinking to manufacturing thinking. And that shift is not easy. Construction defaults to action. Manufacturing demands systems, documentation, standardization, visibility. If you want prefab to scale, you cannot just push more work into the shop. You have to build the systems that support it. That is exactly what today's conversation is about. Today, I'm joined by Jim Wallner. Jim started his career in sales and manufacturing before becoming an electrician at Staff Electric in Milwaukee. He eventually left his apprenticeship path to focus fully on growing and systematizing their fabrication operation. What makes Jim's perspective powerful is that he has both lived experiences on his side. He has seen what happens when prefab is pushed too fast without buy-in. He's watched the dark period when field teams resist it, and he has helped rebuild it in the right way. This is a candid conversation about what it actually takes to scale prefabrication inside a real electrical contractor. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast. We are recording live at Advancing Prefab here in Dallas and excited to have Jim with me here. Thanks for joining us and coming on the podcast.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for the audience listening at home, can you give a little bit kind of who you are, what your background is, and how you got into this industry?
Yeah, sure. I got into the industry a decade ago, so 10 years ago. I work for Staff Electric. We're an electrical contractor, a union electrical contractor out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Before I came to Staff, I had a background I was in sales for a while, coming out of like college. And then I hated sales, right? There's just so much expectation, and you never know where your next paycheck's coming or going or whatever, So I didn't really like that. I was good at it. And then I got into manufacturing for a while, and I've always loved construction. Originally, when I graduated high school, I wanted to eventually just own my own general contracting, build houses, do that sort of thing. Like greenhouses really is what I wanted to do. And went a different path, obviously. But then I circled back to construction, and I was like, I'm going to be an electrician. I want to be an electrician. I knew somebody in the trades at Staff. He got me a job, and I got my apprenticeship, and I was in the fabrication shop at the time, and I'm in there, and I'm like starting to I'm seeing what's going on, and I'm like, there's a ton of potential here for where this is going. And then you start to look into it, and you see where the industry itself is going. So I actually took another career turn. I dropped out of my apprenticeship to pursue maximizing and taking fabrication for Staff Electric where I think it can be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how I got here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What sparked the passion for prefab?
So you could see when I first got into it, you could see that it was a bunch of construction people trying to do manufacturing processes, and they had the concept, but they didn't know how to execute it well. And they didn't know how to document it. And you got to remember, guys coming from the field, there are a lot of guys that just get things done, and every one of them has a tribal knowledge. You're right. The apprenticeship is generally you learn these things, and then there's this expectation of you. Mm-hmm. And then we put you out into the world, and you kind of fend for yourself. Right. So they're just used to getting things done. Manufacturing, right, is a completely different concept, because you're basically you are responsible for doing this portion, and then you just keep going the assembly, right? One piece flow. They don't quite understand that sometimes, and they just want to jam things through and do it. And what that leads to is you'd have an untrained workforce, right? Mm-hmm. You have products that are going out, they're the same products, but they're going out in different styles, right? You have different shipping methods. Everybody's doing it and executing, but it's all different. And you have no documentation for how it's done.
Right.
So that's where I was like, we can clean this all up and make this a lot better.
Well, there's the inherent kind of default setting in construction of action first isn't a bad thing. That's it. I'm that same way. But
Yeah, right. Yeah, yep.
we have to your point, the documentation
Yeah.
and how to standardize,
Just
critical.
you have to customize it, right? You know, and make it predictable. Especially, I know at the beginning, one of the things we struggled with, right? We didn't have visibility. And then so project managers are every day, why do you have all these hours? Why, where are these costs? What are you spending this money on? So we didn't have visibility on it at all. And without the system, it's hard to create the visibility.
Right.
You got to have that backup.
Right. So how do you develop the change management that's needed then to kind of shift the mindset? Because at first it will slow you down, and it would be frustrating that, going back to that default setting of people wanting to take action, you're going to be slowed down. And so that's going to be triggering the whole frustration of like, oh, I just want to do it. This is a terrible process.
Correct.
Get through that pain.
It's not easy. It's not a quick process. I guess and I see this a lot in the entire industry, is especially people just starting out, right? They get this initiative from their executive teams or whoever it is, or they come here and they get this inspiration, right? And they're like, we're going to do prefab.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we're going to jam this thing down everybody's throats, and we're going to do all the prefab that we possibly can, and everybody's going to love it.
Right.
And they do this and they fail. And everybody hates the prefab. And then everybody eventually their eyes open. They're like, all right, we need to take a step back. We need to figure out what we're good at, start executing those things well, get the buy-in, and then move forward with it. So we hit that same cycle. We hit a time in, I would say like 2018, somewhere around there, where it was like, we have to stop doing what we're doing and relook at this. And everybody understood it company-wide. Like, the initiative was kind of pulled back, and it was like, let's figure out how to do this the right way, and then we'll move forward with it.
Yeah. I think that buy-in piece is wildly critical because, to your point, people, if it's forced down from the top, which it needs executive buy-in, but if it's forced down from the top, then it's just, there's a kind of a hazy vision, but there's no execution items that people can actually go and do.
Correct. And so even in the field, right, you want the field is obviously who you need the buy-in from. If you're just pushing it down their throat, they're not going to help you.
Right.
And even worse, they're going to make it harder for you.
Yeah. They're going to undermine it.
Yeah. Well, and they're going to, I love all the field guys. They're great. But like when we were in our like they call it the dark period, right? It was, these guys hated it so much, but it was pushed so much on them. Like a guy would send in on like an order form, a single 3/4 inch 90 bend. It's like, you're just being sassy, dude. Come on, man. So yeah, you gotta get the buy-in for sure. And like what helped us really get the buy-in was, one, we drew back. We started coming to the table and looking at more as what can we do to take the work off of their plate, if that makes sense. So one, prefab, most of the guys don't want to do it if you're just starting out. They're just not going to want to do it. And to them, it looks like it's more work. Now they got to, when you're thinking about it as a foreman, you're like, now I got to think even further ahead, and I'm not even generally on the job till after I should be already, right? So now you're going to add this added piece of the puzzle. So one of the things we started doing is we started coming to the table with them, to the table with the plan, and saying, this is everything we can do. We'll help you massage this and then help you get it through the shop, and we're going to do a lot of the lifting for you. So that was one of the things that really helped us get the buy-in. The other thing was, we started looking, so we're a union electrical contractor, right? So we have like CWs and CEs, so they're like pre-apprentices, right? And so we started viewing the shop more as a training ground. So the guys that come into the shop, they start in at staff. Generally, they're coming into the shop first. Then they got to get leveled up through their skills through the shop before they can go out into the field. That helps us twofold on buy-in. Now we got guys going out into the field. They know what's coming out of the shop, and they can help the guys that don't really know it install it, learn prints, those sorts of things. So we're going to get this like grassroots effort of young kids coming in and kind of spreading the message. And then also the real payoff is going to be, and we're starting to see it now, because we've been doing this for like 5-6 years now. Those kids now, they got their apprenticeships. Now they're starting to become foremen themselves, and they know the entire life cycle. We'll even take some of them, put them in the BIM department, so they start to understand that, get visibility on that. So it's just grassroots effort to get buy-in from everybody.
I love that. So let's dig into that a bit more. What are some good protocols for developing that good communication and getting the collaboration between the field, the shop, and the back office?
Okay. Yeah. Some good protocols. your first thing is you have to set the goal at the outset of the project, right? And everybody has to be kind of bought into what the goal is. So like what we do at staff is, again, like I said, we go through and we kind of comb through for all the opportunities, but then before we actually have like the handoff meeting for the project, we'll sit down with the project manager, and we have historical data. We've been doing this for like 15 years now. So we'll look at, let's just say it's a hospital and it's 40,000 square feet. And it was this project manager and this project team. On the last job of something similar in this size, they did like 4%. So we'll sit down with the project manager, kind of go through all this and say, on the last one, you guys probably missed a couple opportunities here, a couple opportunities there. You're at 4%. Let's put the goal. We don't like do like some flatline goal. This is what we're doing as a company. It's like, for this project, this is achievable. Let's bump it to 6% and see where we end up, right? So it gives them the ownership of it. And it also, it's not a stretch goal. It's not some, like guys in the field too, they're used to like these stretch goals of hammer, get it done. And then we can pause and breathe. Prefab, you're not going to get buy-in because then everybody's failing all the time, right? So you got to keep capturing all these little wins all the time. So you set achievable goals and just keep massaging it until there's more and more. So that's kind of the way we do it. Yeah.
I love that. It's really focusing on get that snowball effect. All those little kind of 1% improvements.
Correct.
It's a huge thing over the course of the project.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk on the balancing between the digital solutions with the practical realities of the shop. How do you guys kind of try to find the balance to not lean necessarily too far in one direction?
And like, when you're saying digital solutions, are you saying like an Evolve or like?
Yeah, exactly. Tech that's out there.
So yeah, we look at tech all the time, and unfortunately we don't implement a ton of it. So yeah,
there's so many options out there. It could be kind of.
They are. Yeah. So like just perfect example, like over the last 2 years, I've been just essentially looking for something that we can use to manage the manpower and manage the visibility of all the upcoming work. So right now, what we use is an Excel sheet, right? It's an Excel sheet I made 10 years ago, but it's like now it's available company-wide. Logistics uses it. Like it's just like kind of grown, but I need something. It's an Excel sheet, so it's prone to like human error. It's a manual process, right? So I've been trying to find something that I can literally just take and put in there and we can transition right over. And there's nothing out there that's like perfect. So what we're doing on our own end is we looked at stuff for a long time. We almost went in a couple different directions. And then we actually hired a software manager now who's just going to create our own ERP system for us. It's going to be a long process, like probably 2 years before it's done. But yeah, that's kind of the way we're going about it. And then as far as like digital tools and BIM, so like with Revit, we actually don't use any really third-party add-ons. So you talked to Jared from DimTM yesterday. So Jared used to work at staff, and his business partner, Jeff Drew, is at DimTM. They both used to work at staff. We set up a very good process with them of extracting information out of Revit a long time ago. And basically all of our processes and procedures are kind of built around how we harvest that information from the model. So if we transitioned over to an Evolve or another one of these third-party softwares, we'd kind of really have to relook at the entire process. We'd have to look at the entire process and then remap it. And then we'd also have to field team is looking at new things. So we're retraining the field. There's a lot of, if we did it at this point, it would be a lot of rework on our end. So we're hesitant to do it. I see the advantages in a lot of that stuff because it's just the efficiencies you're picking up in BIM. The drawings come out in a more manufacturer friendly way, in my opinion. But the real piece we like to see that we don't get out of some of those is, at the end of the day, the field team can install off of our drawings as well, instead of having to go through the model and do these things to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's funny. It's a conversation that came up a couple times yesterday in recording is how to make the BIM model actually constructible for the shop and the field teams.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a huge question because, as you know, so many people get the BIM drawings and they're like, well, this is crap. I can't use any of this.
Yeah.
I have to redo it, or, it's not buildable.
Yep. Constructability of the model is huge, and it's only getting more critical with these data centers and all this mission critical work. The level of QA QC that's now spanning across everything, including the model, is insane. It's crazy. I mean, we were on a data center last year and they're literally walking around with like a tablet with the model, the QC team, and like verifying that you're like within like 3 inches of tolerance in real life to what's in the model. That's people can't wrap their mind around that,
Right.
especially the guys in the field, because it used to be the model was just kind of, it is what it was. Now it's like it's the law, so it's totally different. So we're actually implementing a lot of processes right now in order to eliminate the rework in the model and make sure we're doing it right the first time. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, bringing it back to advancing prefab here, you taught a class yesterday. You got to get a class. Tell us what was the class about? How'd it go?
So our session was on, it was me and my buddy Jeremy Poppy. Our session was on, it was closing the loop from shop to the field in order to essentially prevent project delays. And basically the gist of it was we like to talk to when we talk to project managers, because the main thing for us is getting project manager buy-in and then helping that spread the message to the field through the planning process, especially because the way we look at it is like simply there's like 3 time horizons, right? When you're planning fabrication. So there's like the 8 weeks out plus, so like 3+ months way out there, right? And then you can get into like the 7 week to 2 week window. And then there's the 2 week window where you're likely building it. And kind of it was built upon what you need to be doing and communicating within those time horizons in order to effectively get work out of on time in order to prevent project delays. And really at the end of it, the main thing we were trying to the kind of drive home slide at the end was sometimes when you get into that second horizon and you haven't done things right in the long-term horizon, when you're transitioning into manufacturing, right? That's the session we were in, was a transition to manufacturing. Sometimes the best thing to do is not do it. Sometimes, and some people have a hard time with that as fabrication shops, because right, for a long time they've been scratching and clawing to get as much work as they possibly can, and now it's a totally foreign concept to be like, no, we're not doing it. But you have to like prevent the integrity of your shop and the integrity of the product that you're sending out, and you also have to prevent delaying the project potentially because things are going wrong because you didn't plan properly.
Right. Yeah, that's a radically different mindset. That's
Oh yeah.
You're like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, it's too crazy for us to take this on. Because you got to think, every job is worried about itself. You're worried about, again, the integrity of the product for the entire company. It's not just one project, it's 40 projects.
Right.
But if you plan it right and you do the like kind of, if you're working in those 3 time horizons, right, you're going to get more work through the shop in general. Your numbers are going to go up. I have data to show how much increase we've had over the last 4 years by kind of following this model. So even by saying we're not doing that a bunch, your numbers are going to go up. You're going to get more orders. You're going to have more hours. It's going to lead to more work.
Yeah. I imagine that having that documentation, that standardization of like, here are the clear, bright lines of what we will accept, what we won't accept.
Yep.
That becomes critical.
Yeah.
Because then it's not just a subjective thing. It's a objective, like, hey, you didn't meet these requirements. I'm sorry, we can't do it.
Correct. Yeah. You got like from each horizon, I'm still in presenting mode, but like in each horizon, you kind of have these like probably 3-4 things that you got to like check off before you get through the gate. And if you're not checking them or having like a strategy in place in order to mitigate the risk by not having them checked, it's going to cause problems. It just is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So any takeaways from the conference so far?
I love coming to these things. They're awesome. I think the networking is second to none. I mean, you get a chance to see people you see maybe once or twice a year. So that's always awesome. And the presentations are always really good. I do enjoy it. I like where we're at is different from where a beginner's at. And it gives you different levels in order to kind of go and see what people are doing. Yeah.
That's what I think it's very unique, and a special thing about advancing prefab is the willingness that everybody has to share what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly. And
oh yeah,
hey, here's what's happened. This was a total failure, but this is what we learned from it. Or, here's a success that we got, but these little things went wrong along the way. You're right. You'll get that honesty and transparency in a lot of places.
Yeah. And those are the best presentations too, where like there's no BS, there's no nothing. And that's kind of what we like to do too, is like, we give you a little bit of shock factor. Like there's this impression that some people have it figured out and others don't, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm not sure who's got it figured out. Like I was at a perfect example. I was at a round table with companies that I'm like, wow, we got to be like them, right? We got to do what they're doing. And I'm at a round. Luckily, I got a round table with them all last year, right? And my jaws dropped. I'm like, you guys don't know anything more than I do. This is making it easy. Yeah. You guys got an awesome marketing team, man, because I have like totally bought into what you're doing. Yeah. But if you're just putting out like your highlights, right? Everybody looks great.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Yeah. It's a fun experience, but then you see, it gives you a little bit of, like inspiration that like, okay, we're not alone, right? Yeah. We're not alone. We're still figuring this out. And that I love it because to me, it's like, a lot of people, when you're in the construction industry, you're going to end up working with we work with other electrical contractors. We work with all the other MEP trades, all these other people. The people that are here, in my opinion, have this mentality, which we all should, is, the rising tide raises all ships, right? If I'm going to work with you in the future, I want you to have an understanding of what's going on with this, so I don't kind of hold your hand through it. We can do it together, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I think is cool.
Awesome. So as we land the plane here, a couple rapid fire questions for you. What is the phrase modeling the future? What does that mean and look like to you?
What does that look like to me? I think modeling the future, the model is the way of the future. I think all construction scheduling at some point is going to come out of there. All construction sequencing is going to come out of there. I think all progress and productivity reporting will be derived from the model, in my opinion, at some point. I mean, it's just the way it's going. I always say we used to build a building twice, like in the estimate, and then they build it out on the job site, right? Yeah. Now you build a building 3 times. In the estimate and pre-construction, you build it in BIM and prefab, and then you actually build it on site. Yeah. That piece there is you're actually building it. That's what people don't like. It's a hard concept for some people to understand, but now you got to say, we built it. Let's use this to make this a lot easier.
Yeah. Yep. So what does innovation mean to you?
Innovation to me is automation and it's data, tangible data that you can use to make decisions. And how do you getting that data? Data for decisions is yes. Huge. How do people connect and learn more about what's going on with you guys? So we have a Staff Electric fabrication page on LinkedIn. You can always hit me up on LinkedIn, yeah, or visit our website, whatever it is. Yeah, that's the best way. Yeah, sounds good. Last question for you: if I could give you all construction power, you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing. What would you pick to innovate? Oof. I mean, I know if I could change one thing in construction, I would change schedules, obviously. If I could innovate one thing, I mean, I think having a fully built model, even if it's AI, whoever it's doing it, as early in the process as I can possibly get. So innovate the way to get that done from the point of the award, I think, because then everything's done and you can work. Yeah. That's our biggest hang up, I think, sometimes right now is that the lack of model coordination being done in time to get everything fabricated. So to me, that will be it. Yeah. I like it. Thanks so much for taking the time and thank you show today. Yeah, thank you. And now it's time for my Todd takes from this episode. First take, you cannot force prefabrication. Prefab fails when leadership mandates it without earning buy-in from the field. If fabrication becomes a top-down directive instead of a value-added solution, resistance builds quickly. The field will reject anything that slows them down or makes installation harder. Prefabrication must prove itself through results. It has to make life easier, not more complicated. Adoption is earned through execution. Second take, manufacturing thinking is different from construction thinking. Construction rewards speed and problem solving in the moment. Manufacturing rewards planning, repeatability, and discipline. Scaling prefab requires systems. It requires documentation, inventory control, quality checks, and realistic production planning. You cannot just move work into a shop and expect efficiency to appear. Industrialized construction only works when the systems behind it are mature. And finally, sometimes the right answer is no. One of the most mature insights in this conversation is knowing when not to fabricate. Not every project is a prefab project. Not every component should be built in the shop. Strategic discipline means understanding where fabrication adds value and where it introduces risk. Scaling prefabrication is not about doing more in the shop.
It's about doing the right work in the shop. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit our sponsor, Great Tech Group, at greattech.com. You can listen to this podcast anytime by simply going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out our website, bridgingthegappod.com. As always, I'm Todd Weyandt, thanking you for joining the conversation to model the future on the Bridging the Gap podcast. Keep innovating.